So go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell me what class you just taught.
All right, hi, I'm Carolyn Levitt. I'm a second grade teacher at Glenn Duncan STEM Academy in Reno, Nevada. We just are in the middle of a close read with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where students are heavily engaged in reading a text multiple times. So the lesson that you just saw was a third part, the third day into it.
All right, excellent. So how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge?
You know, in second grade, we focus so much on the Common Core Standard, RL 2.1, which is basically key ideas and details. And that's specific to like asking and answering questions: who, what, when, where, why, and to demonstrate that understanding of those key ideas and those details in the text. So with this lesson, they've already known those expectations. We've been doing close reads throughout the year, through a number of close reads prior to this, and they've been able to kind of have that prior knowledge and expectation of what's expected from them, being an active participant, whole body listener, things like that, and able to kind of delve deeper into a complex level text. Prior to this, it built on their background. We just finished learning about how land changes over time, the effects of erosion, and how weather can change. So this was a perfect culminating task and close read to kind of get it all together at the end. So, yeah.
Excellent. Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson.
This lesson and ELA is so much different from mathematics and Common Core standards. There's a multitude that you're wanting to hit when you're doing a close read. So, you know, the following standards, we're really focusing on, do you want to stop for a second?
Yeah, no, it's totally fine.
They're going to need to go somewhere.
Okay.
Shh. You need to sit down for 5 minutes. Okay. Go ask Miss Perez if you can join her class to just go read quietly. Mrs. Perez, can I ask you a favor? I'm being interviewed. Can they come and just sit? It's fine. Just sit on your bottoms. I'll be right out. Just sit. The second one.
Yeah, this is
the standards. Okay,
yeah.
So do you want to ask me again?
Sure.
Okay.
Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson.
Okay, so in ELA, like I said kind of before, it's so much different than math where, you know, one lesson specifically hits on one standard, especially in the population that I'm teaching in a Title I school. 90% of my class is ELL, English Language Learners. You're wanting to hit all those standards all the time. So we really looked at, you know, the key ideas and details in order to ask and answer questions. That's getting that verbiage, that language going with these kids. Students also, the integration of their knowledge and ideas, and we really use that complex text to build in from the illustrations. And that's RL 2.7. It's kind of that, we're using illustrations to get a better understanding of what we're reading. Another one is they need to research, and in their writing, which you saw with the anchor charts, is although that was just one small portion, this lesson continues itself with over the next probably 5 to 6 days, where students will be using that information that they're needing to recall in order to from their experiences and then gather information. So at the end of the lesson, I did make sure that students knew they were going to get their own book, have research available to them, many things, so they would be able to gather sources from, or gather information from a various amount of sources to give information as the culminating task. And finally, that kind of collaboration and comprehension, and that's a speaking and listening standard that's very important in second grade and also hit hard with ELL students or any. And truly, academic language is a second language to all of us. It's not something that it's in our normal verbiage. So to me, academic language is a second language to me, and I didn't realize so for so many years until these standards came out, until the shifts came. And so realizing that this is now not only their second language, but this is like a third language to them they're listening to. So that collaboration where they're participating in those small groups was so important. That needed to be part of the lesson. It also, they had their partners about diverse, like about grade 2 topics, diversity of partners with grade 2 topics, and texts. Also, the other student is to be able to recount and recall that information that's given to them. Key ideas or details from a text read aloud or read independently. And as you saw today, it was a read aloud. And that close read is rereading the text multiple times to get that deeper understanding. So hopefully with that scaffolds them into becoming better readers as to, okay, I'm done with the book. No, I want to investigate more. I want to research more. Good readers, we're always enforcing they reread to gain understanding. So those were kind of all the standards hit, if not more.
All right. Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified?
Obviously, core action 1. That's huge for the indicator that ensuring the work, and I made sure to ensure that their work was it reflected the shifts required by the ELA literacy standards. So A, B, C, and D were addressed in this lesson. Students were the majority of read aloud time was, it was a read aloud. It was a complex text that was chosen that's above grade level. And you can do so by looking at the Lexile number. Easy to find that. So it's a complex text. And then the majority was of those listening and speaking and writing skills that are going into it. Also in core action 1, that indicator B, where they're above that level. That's exactly where you want to be, because if it's independent, you're not kind of delving out that information or getting more information from them or having them actually, become thought-provoking thinkers. You're wanting them to engage and do things like that. I think C was a great example of how the indicator C for core action 1 was really well, because Cloudy with a Chance to Meatballs, it's an extremely richly illustrated book, and it gives all those features where you can refer back to that for understanding. So I think core action 1 has been taught throughout the whole year. We've been doing through our read alouds in nonfiction and fiction texts, but I think this one just really exemplified what it is.
Excellent. All right, so discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
It's interesting because for so long, this whole lesson makes my children more engaged. And it's what an experience it is. There's not one pinpoint, but the shifts have truly made a difference of how I teach, how an educator I am. I think all good educators have already been doing it, but now we can vertically align it with everyone. I think that's so important. So by understanding the shifts and by understanding how relevant they are and how much they support, and they are the backbone of the Common Core, it's important to understand that and go forth with that. So, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS?
And as I said, good teachers were always kind of making sure all of these were hit hard before. But in my years of teaching, I think prior, it wasn't as fluid. It wasn't as thought-provoking to students. There was a lot of teacher talk. There was a lot of not as much exploration. And with this guiding instruction, children are truly able to they can lead the questions or those aha moments. And it's amazing to see what my students are doing now compared to what they were doing 8-10 years ago in my classroom. It's just, it almost makes it, as an educator, it almost makes you a little sad this didn't happen sooner. because you see how much these children and students are growing.
Excellent. Let's see. So I'm going to jump back to this one I just kind of skipped over, but this was. Did you talk about the standards?
Yes.
Targeted? Okay. Did get that. Okay. Excellent. All right. So let's talk about scaffolding now. So
Okay.
how do you support all students in working with grade level text? And how do you provide scaffolding for students below grade level so they could read at grade level text?
Okay. So I have the trajectory of learning in my classroom is very different. I have students reading pre-primer level. I have students reading, which is before kindergarten. I have students reading at a 5th grade level. So differentiated instruction is key. And this is done so before in guided reading groups, in small group instruction. But I really think these close reads are making it able for all of my students as a whole group to collaborate with one another, build upon one another's knowledge. In fact, if you notice, if you go back to the lesson, Anthony stood up, who, I don't know if I can say this, you'd have a child, there's been children that haven't stood, should I not use names probably? This child was not talking up until this year, and now he's the first one to get up during, oh, I have this. And I think also I'm engaged. I make sure that I'm with them as a partner, kind of getting that information out. So even in whole group, I'm differentiating by making sure I'm coming around. And I think through my pod or through my group work, it's all that there's multiple levels working together to build on each other. And I feel that's so important because it makes them feel as a whole class and a whole family or a whole unit to work together and excel as a class.
Yeah. And how do you know that all students were able to successfully respond to the text-dependent questions and tasks with precision?
I think I was able to do so by, you always do that informally, assessing students as you're going around. Also, the culminating task is working in partners. So, through differentiated instruction, you're looking at, and through those, when they break off, as this lesson progresses more, I'll be continuing to make sure that they're paired with someone that they can work with well, but they're also held accountable. And I think that's how truly within just this lesson that you saw, I was able to know that they were successfully responding. That accountable talk, those talk moves, repeating what she said. Oh, I'm gonna come back to you. Can you tell me what they said? And making sure that happens is key. And it's even, even if you have a student that kind of isn't really sure about what to answer, they're a little, not as engaged, you can hold them accountable for revoicing another student's, opinion or answer. And then having other students defend their answer is so important. So that's how you can kind of see that happening.
Excellent. Which behaviors from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson?
I think the opportunity to engage in the whole work of this lesson was so important. I think I used the strategies, that they had to persevere. I mean, a close read, you have to persevere. And I think that by going over the objective multiple times within the lesson, reminding them what a close read is, we're really getting in there to investigate, to dig deeper into our reading, is really showing that perseverance, that rigor that needs to happen in Core Action 3. The conversations that were taking place, there were multiple ways for them to interact with one another. By peer-to-peer talking, then they'd have to switch partners and then going back to their tables or their pod groups to work with a whole new set of kids. That meant that they were really getting into that indicator B, I think, quite well. And then as any good teacher, the knowledge of individual students. So that's when I kind of go right in there and make sure I might be their partner or pair them with someone that I know that can, kind of build upon that. And, quite honestly, I don't think educators give our kids enough credit as they should be given. Because a lot of the times, especially with the Common Core and the shifts, I think you step back and you say, you know what, my kids can do this. And I think that's the brilliance of it all, is that, each child is able to do it, and there's a spectrum where they can do it, and they will all fit in somewhere in that spectrum where they will be successful and motivated learners in the end. So.
That's great. That's great. All right, the last two.
Okay.
Reflecting on this lesson, what worked particularly well, and what might you do differently?
This is the third read of this. So I'm really interested to see what kind of happens in the culminating tasks. I probably would have given a little bit more time for writing, which my kids came back right after lunch and were like, are we going to write more? Are we going to write more? Can we research? Can we research? And so, if they want to do that, that's where you let them lead. And yes, we will do more. I would have probably done a little bit more interactive writing with it. But I think, though, the vocabulary, that scaffolding of the vocabulary, it's very hard. Some of the vocabulary in this, it is a complex level text. So I think maybe if I were to reteach it, I don't know if I'd do anything differently. I might enhance things a little bit more, making sure maybe they had like a word study notebook, or making sure tomorrow that they go in there, they already do have those, so making sure they go back in their word study notebooks, write their words, and in their vocabulary for that culminating tasks. So.
All right.
And the last one.
Last one. Were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
Like I said before, I think as educators, we don't give students enough credit. We really need to believe in them, and that's where the Common Core is so amazing, because you have to understand that a child wants to learn and is here to learn. And if you can motivate them and you can do it through these and vertically align it within every other classroom, the behavior, the unexpected behavior or reactions, I don't think I had any, because my kids have been doing this so well. But I think you have to start that from the beginning. And, I think knowing what I knew about a few students prior to this year beginning, knowing that the student had missed a full half a year last year, but yet the student was able to come up and explain to the class what drizzle means. I think as an educator, you need to put your bias at the door. You need to kind of check all of that out and know that my students can do it. And, any reaction or unexpected is usually a positive. And I think with them collaborating and working together, that was not unexpected, but well received from me, I think, so as their teacher. So.
Great work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did I answer those okay?
Yeah.